Hello everyone, welcome to the next Mental Health Minutes. All of us are on this same journey together, but we are all handling it a little bit differently, and we have different emotions that we're experiencing. But I feel, and I think a lot of you feel, like our lives are in slow motion, or like somebody has pressed the pause button. And this is an uncomfortable feeling for a lot of us. Because as humans, we spend a lot of our time thinking about the future, about what's to come, and about the past, as we've talked about in other mental health minutes. We've talked about the importance of being aware of the here and now, but I've been realizing that even though this is such a big deal to me, this is still something that I really struggle with. And so I can preach it and teach it all I want, but it's something that I continue to really struggle with in these times. I was explaining to my husband the other day that I felt like someone is holding me back and I'm pressing against it, like I could feel a physical pressure on my chest, like I was trying to move forward and someone was literally holding me back. And that made me think about something I haven't thought of for a really long time, and that is my childhood dog. I had this sweet little cockapoo terrier, but he couldn't walk. And I don't mean he couldn't physically walk, I mean he couldn't handle direction and he couldn't walk on a leash. And it didn't matter what kind of leash we tried, whether we had a collar that was a chain or a rope or a cord. This dog strained against that leash so hard that he would make himself sick. And passersby on our walks used to look at us as if to say, "Why are you abusing your dog?" But we weren't doing anything to him. In fact, we were trying to be nice, and we were just trying to take him on a walk. And he's the one who was straining against us, straining to get to that next blade of grass 5 seconds sooner than we had originally intended. And you know, we never put something really nice smelling in front of him and then said, "Well, you can't go and sniff that." He always got there eventually. We also never led him anywhere dangerous that he needed to avoid. This kind of seems like our relationship with God a little bit, doesn't it? He has a plan marked out for us. We don't know what that is, we can't see what that is yet, but we know that it is meant for our good, that it's meant to prosper us and not to harm us and give us a hope and a future. We know that, and yet we strain ahead because we want to know more, we want to know the next thing, we want to be in the next place. But when we are like that, there's a lot that we're missing out on. This reminded me of an encounter that we see recorded in the Bible where Jesus meets Saul in Acts chapter 26. And in verse 14, Jesus says, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? It's hard for you to kick against the goads. Well, in 2020, many of us wonder what on earth he's talking about. But back then, they would have understood what that meant. A goad was essentially an apparatus a farmer would use to prod their oxen, and the farmer would stand behind the oxen and prod him on, would direct him the way he wanted him to go. And one end of the prod had a pointy metal piece, and the other end was blunt. And the thing about these oxen is sometimes they didn't want to go where their owner wanted them to go, and so they would kick back. But as a result, it would make it even more painful because then they would get stuck in the hindquarters again a little harder so that they would go where they were supposed to go. And Jesus is saying, Saul, you're making this much more painful on yourself. I've been goading you on. I've been trying to get your attention for years, and you keep avoiding me. I've been trying to teach you. And I wonder if that's what we are doing in these moments of isolation, in these moments of slow motion life or pause. Are we straining ahead so much that we are missing what God is trying to teach us in the present moment? Are we straining so hard forward that we are making this whole journey more painful than it needs to be? And so, like my dog who used to make himself sick, or like the oxen who was getting continually poked, we're experiencing this as a greater hardship than perhaps it needs to be. What does God have to do to get our attention, or to get us to focus on what it is that he wants us to learn right now? And you see, when we're pressing ahead all the time, we're missing what's going on in the present moment. And that reminds me of the concept of mindfulness, which I have talked to you about. But I wanted to bring to your attention a little diagram that I have hanging in my office, simply because it explains mindfulness in a really easy way, I think. And it actually involves a dog, ironically enough. And in this picture, you see the dog walking along and thinking of the smells around him, the smells of the trees and the grass, the beautiful sunshine. Boy, he really must be thankful for that walk. And then we see the human that's walking him. And his mind is so full of stuff that he has going on in his life that he fails to notice what's around him. There are no trees in that thought bubble. No sunshine, no grass, just stuff. This is the difference between being mindful and having our mind full of stuff. Not only are we not able to enjoy the present moment when we are taking our journey that way, but we're also missing what God is trying to teach us and what God is doing in the present moment. I would like to leave you with two things. One is a scripture from Proverbs 16, verse 9, and it says, "In his heart a man plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps." And then I'd like to point you towards a song. Perhaps you can look it up on YouTube. It's by a group called Casting Crowns, and it's called "Just Be Held." It's a really great song, and I think that it'll help to kind of drive this point home even further, so that you will understand, we can all understand better, that what we need to do is rest into this present moment, to yield to the one who has the ultimate control and who provides us with direction. We will eventually get where he means us to go in his time, but it won't be as painful if we just yield to that direction and listen for him. I hope this has been helpful for you, and we will see you next time.